Hi buddies, welcome to Mass Games. My name is Simon and today I'm going to know how to set up, play and review for the game Marvel Champions, the card game. Now this is a living card game, which means there are various bits and pieces you can swap in and out of the game to vary it. I've deliberately left these pieces out so that I'll be able to easily access them in a bit. You'll kind of see what I mean in due course. And this is a game obviously set in the Marvel universe whereby you're going to be battling various villains, taking on the role of a specific hero or heroes if we're playing it multiplayer. As you can see, I've already kind of sorted the box. One thing I will point out and come back to is the fact that these cards do not fit in this gap. The first time I played it with everything unwrapped, it actually took an hour just to set everything up. So I'll be setting up for a solo play today, and there will be a playthrough video in due course. So please, of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to check that out. And I'll be going through the standard tutorial for that and for this kind of setup initially. Now, the various characters you can play. You can play as Captain Marvel. So if you're playing this as a 2, this is the kind of character you're going to pick. I have deliberately held off doing this video until I've played all the characters. I've played all but She-Hulk currently. This is the first player marker, again, if you're playing it multiplayer. And again, we also have Tony Stark and Iron Man. So again, as I mentioned, I've played all the characters except for She-Hulk. I've played all the villains that come in the game. And that includes on expert mode as well. There's only a couple of small baggies, so I've got some excess stuff that I haven't needed there. When I pick up these cards, this is going to be relevant for the villain, which I'll come on to. Also, I've got some cards here which you're going to be using for this particular set, as well as the villain that we're going to play with initially, which is Rhino. I'll come back to some themes and things to do with that as well. So inside the box, again, there are also other heroes you can play, and Nemesis, and in this case we have Black Panther's Nemesis. So we have Killmonger, and of course there is T'Challa and Black Panther. And I'll come back to this. This is to do with an obligation. Certain things that are unique to the individual heroes or alter egos that you're playing with, and certain cards that it's recommended that you play the first time you play this. So we've got this marker here. This represents your health, which we will be sorting out in due course. As you can see, it dials up to 99. And as we'll be playing with Spider-Man, he'll start with 12. We'll be playing with Rhino, as I mentioned. He'll start on 14. And again, I'll come back to show you a bit more about that in a moment. We've also got various other cards. There's hundreds of cards, as you can see. And basically, any excess stuff I've just left to the side. So, for example, we've got She-Hulk. And depending on the number of players, you've got some basic cards. And there's some excess cards that you might well have. Again, if you're not playing it solo. You've also got various small cards here, such as Tough, and as it states on the card, we have here stating the next time this character takes any damage, this person will discard the status card instead. As you can start to see, it's quite a lot of stuff that you do need in the game, and there are other cards as well of the same size called stunned cards. So next time anyone would attack, you discard that card instead, which makes sense because it's stunned. And confused, which is similar. If they were to thwart a scheme, which I'll come on to, again, they will be discarding that as well. So as I said, we're going to be not playing with anyone but Rhino. We also have Ultron in here. As I said, I've played through all the baddies as well. So we've got Ultron in here. And I've also played with Claw, which again is another baddie. You tend to play Claw and then you play Ultron based on the difficulty. You're going to leave these in play. I tend to leave these off to the side, so just for the time being, to save some space, we're going to move those out of shot. And again, it does state here, starter pack. So you're going to see this when you open it. It'll be starter pack. You've got a Rhino with a 1 here, and a Rhino with a 2. And behind that, you've got Rhino 3. Now, if you happen to be beating this game quite a few times against Rhino on normal mode, you can then play it on expert, which is you're playing with a 2 and a 3. So starting off with a higher hit point initially, not 14, and it's going to be a higher attack value and some special stuff as well. And you can mix in the expert card as well, which you can or don't have to do. Also going to need this main scheme, which I'll come on to. So again, we're playing with Rhino. We've picked our villain. We're now going to pick our hero, let's say. And I said we're going to pick with Spider-Man. So you're going to pick the Nemesis for Spider-Man. In this case, we have this guy here, Vulture. So he's going to be in place. And I'm going to leave him just kind of top of the screen there. So this card here, you won't find with all the heroes, but this is the starter deck. This is the cards you typically want to play with the first time you play it. In this instance, you have got these basic cards here, these various things that are in all the different decks that you can play with. So you have the hero cards, that's specific just to Spider-Man, and these are copies you're going to use. You have aspect cards, which I'll come back onto, so there's 4 different types of aspect. This one uses Justice, which is like a yellow background, such as Jessica Jones can help you out with this. You've then also got some basic cards, which I mentioned, which you play with all the different heroes you want to play with. The obligation I mentioned. And again, I've talked about the Nemesis. So we'll leave those Justice cards there. Spider-Man card can kind of go back in the box. You don't really need that presently. Let him leave out a shot. Then we have Spider-Man. So here he is. We have Peter Parker. We have Spider-Man. As with all the heroes, you always start on the alter ego first, because quite frankly, they are just doing, their daily lives. And then, of course, someone like Rhino comes along, which we'll get onto his kind of story in a moment. But you could, of course, flip and start doing some damage, thwarting a scheme. You could be defending. You can do the special stuff that Spider-Man can do, such as, you can react, basically. But as Peter Parker, you're not taking damage, as an example, because, of course, it doesn't know that you're bad to attack. And in this case, you could be generating resources, which is the core part of the game. So there's the obligation card. Now, at this moment, I'm going to turn the cards over and show you, well, that's, of course, double-sided. But these cards are all the hero cards in blue, and the villain cards are in yellow. So that's going to go in the cards to do with Rhino, which we'll come on to in a moment. And these are those hero cards. Now, sometimes, it depends how you like to play it, you can go through these cards and actually understand what on earth they do initially. So, for example, this is a healing card, basically, when you are as Peter Parker, which means you need to make sure you're flipping, and you can only do that once per turn in a round. Then, ultimately, you could say, I want to heal because I want to flip, or I want to turn over and do some damage, but then you can't turn back. Other cards, you can get allies in play. What they can do, well, in this case, you can look and try and get some extra cards. It can thwart a scheme, which is a core part of the game to basically win or lose. And attack to, again, ultimately win the game. You need to be defeating this villain. They'll have some health, and each time you tend to do something, for example, thwarting, you're taking some damage as well. So, they're trying to help you out, but they've done some bad stuff as well. So again, here are all the cards. They've always got their logo. So whenever you're looking for whichever hero you're playing, it's always going to be bottom right. And there's kind of a color coding going on here. So there's red and blue. Okay. I'll talk about the components and stuff like that in a bit of time. But as I said, we're playing with Spider-Man, so playing these hero cards. We're playing with these basic cards, which come with the game. And we're playing with these Justice cards. So all of them need to be smushed in and put together. And this is going to be a very poor shuffle. But I'll be moving stuff out of the way in a moment. Okay, so you're going to have those deck of cards. You're going to move, obviously, that starter card. We've picked Rhino. Let's quickly now talk about what's going on. So the break-in, the main scheme. Rhino is trying to smash through the facility wall and steal a shipment of vibranium. You must stop him. Basically, if he gets 7 of these hazard tokens, which I'll show you in a moment, we lose. So that's what we need to be stopping. And I love the art on this as well. Now, this is actually the side we play with. It does start off like this, basically telling you the exact stuff you need to do. But once you've done that, it's fine. So these are what I'm talking about, these hazard tokens, these things here. It starts off with 1 per player. So I'm just playing it solo, so 1's going to go on there. And again, when it gets onto Rhino's turn, as you'll see in a moment, it's going to start getting some more. Now, we've got these brochures and stuff, basically how to play the game, and a whole other book which gives you a bit more information on doing some more stuff. Now, I've played this game over 20 times, and you are checking that rule book probably in the first 10 or so games. There's a lot of stuff you just want to clarify and check, and there's not normally that amount of games that I need to be spending those amount of plays to really be looking at the rules. Again, I'm zoomed in quite a bit here because there's a lot of text on the cards, so it's obviously an English language heavy game. And now let's talk about actually how the game turns work out. Now, it does come with 4 of these turn-based cards, and I'm just going to show you how it looks, and then go through the steps of a certain round, and then move on to the review. So the player phase, so let's have this here, so you're going to go through all of them, and then you go through the villain phase. So the first thing you're going to do, of course, is, as I said, start as the alter ego, so have Peter Parker. Again, you're going to shuffle up these cards, and depending on the card or size limit, you're going to draw up to that amount of cards. Now, in this case, Peter Parker has a hand size of 6, so you're going to be drawing 6 cards. Now, there's another couple of things just to mention, and that is, if you haven't already, please subscribe or consider subscribing and hit that notification bell for all the plenty of 50+ games that I've got lined up. Additionally, hit the like button if you're enjoying the content, share as well, by all means chuck in a comment, and finally, check out the description for other things such as almost 2,000 Instagram photos at the time of recording. Okay, so going to move Rhino right into that corner. We're going to move the break-in right into the corner as well, and we'll leave these confused cards out the game as well. So this card will need to be shuffled into Rhino's deck, which I'll do in a moment. We also need to, of course, shuffling these up as well. And of course, this card can go out of shot because, again, unless it says anything about it, it's not going to come up. Basically, these basic cards have something called Shadow of the Past. So here are those cards of Rhino. So you find in the relevant cards of Rhino, of which there are 21, and there are some standard cards. So depending on which villain you play with, you're always going to have some cards that are going to be in here more than once. Now you're going to take this eviction notice. Again, this is going to be slid in. The last time I did this, the 7th shuffle, because they say 7's the right kind of time to shuffle it, it came up first. Let's find out in a moment. So that is over there. Let's leave that kind of top of the thing. Now again, apologies if there's any kind of wobble. It's the new layout. Okay, so we have our card. We don't need that reference card. And now we're going to draw 6 cards because we have Peter Parker. And let's kind of do it down the bottom here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's our starting thing. We have the deck over here. Again, we have the health of Rhino over the top here. We have our health. Our hit points is actually 10, not 12. Let me move it down to 10. Once I've just done this first round, I'll then move on to explaining to you what I think of the other heroes and, of course, the components and stuff like that. So let's see what we can do. Well, we need to get this down to 0 twice. Firstly this, and ultimately when we flip this over, he's got 15 health. Also, we've got to make sure that Rhino doesn't win. Of course, what we're going to be doing, let's see what we have first and foremost. We can attach to a minion. We've got no minions. Let's not worry about that. I'll talk to you about the symbology in a moment. We can deal 8 damage to hero. Well, that's strong, but, let's think about some other stuff. We have Jessica Jones. So whilst she can do 2 attack, she has 3 health, and each time she does an attack, then she's going to take some damage, which you're going to represent by taking one of these tokens and putting on there. So she can kind of do 6 damage for the same kind of thing, but she could thwart as well. And you get +1 thwart for each side scheme in play. So there are some side schemes, as I mentioned, such as the highway robbery, as an example. That's a side scheme. We also have this, 3 web counters. So it enters some counters, which are these universal green-blue tokens, which look like that. So you'd have 3 of them, and you can spend all of them to gain a resource. That's a very good card. We have for justice, one of those yellow justice cards. And remove 3 threat from a scheme, or 4 if you pay for this card using a special kind of resource, okay, like this symbol here. And finally, we have Mockingbird. After she enters play, you basically stun an enemy. Twist this card, and it can't attack during its phase. I think I might go for this card. I also like this very much. So firstly, I'm going to pay 1. Now, I have to pay a cost of 1. Now, the cost is basically these bottom left-hand symbols. So I'm going to use this card here and pay the cost. So it's just a single card that's one paying. It's going to go into my discard. So that's now in play. We also now have some other cards. So what else I want to do? I might bring out Jessica Jones. I might bring out Mockingbird. Let's bring out Mockingbird. So that's going to cost me 3. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to take these cards. It's going to come out. And when she enters play, Rhino stuns. So right now, he's not even going to be attacking me. Do you know what? I'm not going to use her. I'm going to bring in Jessica Jones instead, because then I want to show you how Rhino attacks. Okay, so I've had my turn, and now I've got no cards left. If I did have any, firstly, I could have done 2 things. My very first 6 cards I can mulligan, which means I don't have to play them. Okay, let's assume I didn't. The very first 15, 20 old games, I didn't bother mulliganing, and this time around, I do the same. Now I get to draw again up to Peter Parker's thing of 6 cards, but actually before I do that, I'm going to flip, which means I'm going to have 5 cards, and before I even look at these cards, I can start doing stuff. I'm going to attack for 2, which brings down the health to 12, okay? And at the end of the turn, a few things happen. You ready or you're here? Oh, sorry, and then Jessica Jones attacks for 2. So she attacks, or no, do you know what? Let's do it. She thwarts for 1. So she just takes off 1 damage. And then you ready all your heroes and allies. You then draw up your cards based on who you're playing, which is you're playing as a hero, drawing 5 cards, 3, 4, 5. Let's move it there. And now it's the villain's turn. So now to the villain phase. The very first thing that happens is it schemes. So it's always working towards this goal. And what we're trying to do, of course, is stop it. Now, if it's the alter ego, two things happen. Firstly, it's going to use the scheme up number. So it's going to scheme for 1, which would give a thing there, plus whichever number, ignore everything but down here. Look at nothing else down there. But as we're in the hero mode, it's actually going to be attacking us for that amount. So it's attacking for 2 plus 3, 4. So now it's going to attack us for 4. Now I could choose to have defended before I revealed this card. I chose not to, or I forgot to. So let's just go down. He's now on 6 health, which is obviously fairly low. You know, that's 40% health damage. And now what's going to happen is it does one more thing. It does an encounter. So this card reveals, and in this instance, it's the same card. All it's going to be doing is the actual card, not necessarily down there. So in this case, it's attaching to Rhino. So we can just do it here, or move these cards out of the way a bit. Let's just do it to the side. And now it's going to be attacking for 3 extra. In addition, it's got overcharge or overkill, which means if I happen to do it against an ally, if it takes them out for 3, it'll then do 2 damage to me. So I did have some cards which you draw at the end of your turn. What I could have done is mainly played a card which might have nullified something. That's basically an event. You can play events in your turn. I think that's the only thing you can really play outside of your turn. There are a number of clarifications of the rule which are quite house rulable. I try to play it as close as I can to these actual rules, and if you have any further opinion on that, please let me know. But that's pretty much how a turn goes. Now it's back to me. Do I want to stay as Spider-Man? Do I want to take some damage? Do I want to worry about the scheme? Do I want to worry about other stuff coming along? Can I build an engine? Can I get better cards out? I can only actually have the most 3 allies, so it's something to be aware of. So that's pretty much how the game goes. I have won it on Expert, on those 3 difficulty of villains, playing, say, a Spider-Man. I've also played it through as, Captain America. So, Captain Marvel. Now, with Captain Marvel, it's a bit different. Spider-Man is kind of the easiest person to play against. But when you start going into the other territories, such as Captain Marvel, you're dealing with flight and aerial, and you might have to turn a card to say, well, if you a card which basically says, now you're flying, now you can trigger other things as well. And then you got into the other things, such as with Iron Man, who has tech. And if you have lots of different tech, then you can do lots of different things. I'm going to start showing some of those cards in a moment. And finally, you have other characters such as Black Panther. I'll come back to She-Hulk another time. But Black Panther, who has various special abilities. And with those special abilities, what you're trying to do is deal with trying to get out one of those special cards, which is called a Wakanda Forever card. And it means ultimately it's triggering all of your special abilities. So you're trying to deal with those different things. So that's basically how the game goes. And it's ultimately about flipping to what's suitable, to taking damage, to preventing, obviously, the lose condition getting closer to fruition. You also need to be, of course, aware of whether you have the right allies, the right resources, what cards do you want to spend and when, and, what combos with each other. And that's just the start of the game. That's just you playing with, say, Justice, let's say. You can play with like Leadership, which gives you more allies. You can play with Aggression, which is the starting deck for Iron Man, which is very aggressive. And if you want to play Protection, which comes with the likes of Black Panther initially, then what's going to happen is you're mainly stopping that scheme, which might not help you much on the attack element. So it's a good blend between defense and attack, and ultimately, if that's the kind of game you're interested in, fantastic. Now, talking about many things here, the components. The box in particular, really, really solid box. Very, very strong, very nice. The cards, it's a nice card stock. I haven't needed to sleeve them. Again, a good number of plays and absolutely fine. It's a nice size. Lovely artwork. There are other similar games like this, such as 1565, which I've got on the channel. Again, check out the playlists I have for How to Set Up, Play and Review, and check out that. Of course, having particularly Marvel animations in the 90s and all the films, I'm quite familiar with some of the style, and it's very nice. I like the theme very much. There's a kind of continuity between Rhino through to Claw through to Ultron, relating to obviously what they're trying to be doing, which is great. And this is just the core set. There's lots more to it as well. One huge negative, and that is this width thing going on here. Like I said, absolutely awful. It kind of takes, I give this kind of game an 8 out of 10, but I feel like a 6 out of 10 of the fact that this narrow thing is horrible. Now, this is rare for me, but I've only played this game solo so far. I think it's, they say, a lot more swingy solo compared to multiplayer, and that's because of course, what you have, but easier multiplayer, I believe. Now there are many other expansions, like 18 plus expansions you can get. You can get Captain America. There's Hulk, which isn't very highly rated. It's the same for Thor. But I know that Ant-Man plays very well. I know that Black Widow, you can literally try and stay in alter ego mode the entire time. So there's lots of cool things about it. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know. But ultimately, I found it's very enjoyable. It's very quick to play. You typically play it in 20, maybe 30 minutes. I think there's a right level of complexity. Now, Rhino is one of the definitely easier ones, but equally, I find it can still be a challenge and it can still be quite close. It's about racing between, they're down to 4 health. Do I just try and go for it this turn? Or do I just try and preserve myself and hope they don't draw something which gives them a bit more health back? Like I said, there's loads of expansions out. The most recent one, Galaxy's Most Wanted, is by far harder than anything else. And again, if you're really after a challenge, then there's something to consider. Baggies and stuff is pretty important. You can get custom inserts. You can use paper and whatever. But it's a real disappointment seeing all these kind of cards all over the place. I haven't played with any aspects, actually, which go with heroes other than their sort of base set. Quite curious to try it out. I don't see natural synergies for them presently, but I think they can be of interest. It's quite nice having these starter cards just as a way of separating things out. And anything else, of course, I find of interest to chuck in, then of course, please check out that description as I mentioned, as well, of course, with any kind of future updates I have. Aside from that, it's been very fun trying to, bash them and the various other characters that pop up, such as Daredevil, who plays, allies and whatnot. Very enjoyable. It's a fantastic experience. I really did enjoy it. And all kinds of things, stunned cards and stuff. Any rules, clarifications, they do have kind of overrides and whatnot, which is pretty cool. And again, I found it a very quick, quite addictive game to be playing. And if you, again, have any other questions, please let me know. I look forward to answering them. But there are many other games coming, as I mentioned. And again, if there are any more questions for this, I look forward to speaking to you again ASAP. All the best. Thank you very much for watching. And if you're looking to see about DC, well, who knows? There might be some there. This is a fantasy fight game. And of course, living card game. You can choose what you want to play with. You have various people in here as well. So all the best. Bye for now.